Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. My name is Hollow and today we're talking Vikings, Assassin's Creed Vikings specifically, that is. The next title in the Assassin's Creed series was finally revealed. The Assassin's Creed Valhalla game is upcoming, and now we've had both a story cinematic and a not so gameplay filled gameplay trailer and a good amount of interviews too, so I can say with some confidence now that I know a reasonable amount about this game. So to save you the trouble of waiting or reading through multiple interviews, I've created an all you need to know video based on what we know so far for Valhalla. Let's start with the core of these games. The story. It all starts just a few days ago, in 873 AD. The Viking Age has just begun, while England was in its dark ages. It was more of a land than a country, fractured with many different rulers and kings fighting for control. The game actually begins in Norway though, following the story of a Viking clan leader known as Eivor. You can play as a male or female, whichever you'd like, but it's only one story rather than two separate characters split into two stories like in the world of Odyssey. This start in Norway though will give you a perspective on why they're trying to move to England and settle in a new land, considering the harsh and, well, hard to live in land that they've got to fight over in Norway at this time. While we do see this English king in the cinematic, Alfred the Great, he isn't exactly the standard villain as it might seem like when you first see him here. There was many sides to this conflict, and he's absolutely an important figure in history overall. The main antagonist of Valhalla will actually be hidden and discovered throughout the story. Though we do start in Norway, England will be the main map and stage of play, cut up into four major kingdoms: Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, and East Anglia. Featuring three major cities of London, Winchester, and Jorvik, aka York, there's going to be a fair amount of civilization to enjoy outside of the warring kingdoms, plus many smaller towns and wide areas of each kingdom too. Not to mention Norway itself. Apparently we'll be able to return to Norway whenever we choose, because there's actually a lot to do there after the opening of the game is underway. Though this is all interesting and a very neat setup for the game and world, I am starting to wonder, how does this link to the Assassins? Like, where that comes in exactly? It almost feels like an afterthought. Eivor will encounter both Assassins and Templars during this time, as you should expect, and ultimately side and go with the Assassins. Supposedly, it'll be surprising and, well, a different relationship between the character and faction. You can definitely reference Black Sails here as a comparison. Eivor, our main character, is described as a sort of lone wolf that has a community he's tied to, and depends on him and his efforts. I think a large chunk of the choices and story and conflicts we'll face will include this community that you're sort of in charge of and looking after, trying to settle in England. It makes for a new style of story in the series as a leader of a clan. I think it's really interesting that the story of this game will take place over many years. There was a comparison made to the second game in the series with Ezio, which actually took place over 20 years total. Anyway, let's start talking about mythology, since we'll of course be taking a deep look at the Viking myths, Norse gods, and magic during this game. We already know from the cinematic that gods and myth will play a part in this world. Odin actually has a presence here, which is shown in the cinematic trailer via his raven that inspired the Vikings during battle, which was actually heralded, if you didn't see, by this bearded man just chilling under this tree, which I think might actually be Odin. How direct these Norse themes will vary. It's meant to be a more grounded telling of the story, not as intensely magical or as in your face. You see Eivor make a blood sacrifice to Odin before the battle, and sure enough, Odin returns the favor in this way. We'll see a very similar approach to the way gods were presented in Origins, for example, since this is actually the same team again. Overall, I'm intrigued to see how they approach this massive and important topic, and I hope we do see glimpses, even if we don't literally see Thor killing people with his hammer and all that, but I want to see lots of Norse god themes. Anyway, let's get into the meat and bones of this game. It's gameplay. Starting with the settlements. These are important villages that you're going to set down and progress, allowing you to choose and unlock new buildings that have an impact on the game itself. You'll meet people through the story, and these people will have different values that you might end up using in your settlements, finding people of different skills for different purposes and bringing them to your home. There's also going to be some sort of customization, letting you choose these buildings and locations that you put them in a relatively free-form way. I definitely have doubts though on exactly how freeform that will actually be, but we'll have to wait and find out on that one. A lot of the story and decisions you make will form around the settlements you create, and they'll be a main hub for you in general. We'll see events that you create, like weddings that you forge for alliances between you and other clans. You'll have romance options, so if you choose to partake in this element of the game, these will occur via the settlements too. These settlements will be a place you regularly return to. You'll go out and progress a storyline then gather resources, find a new person to bring back, maybe arrange an alliance. Whatever it is you're doing, you'll do it, and then you'll return to the settlement. It'll be something you come back to often to maintain and improve, and will be at the core of your decisions throughout the entire game. So that's cool, but let's talk about combat. Specifically described at the Xbox X Showcase event that happened very recently, the combat is meant to be much more visceral and brutal this time around. Obviously, we saw some nasty kills in the cinematic, and Assassin's Creed has always had general visceral combat, but it seems they're going much deeper this time. Vikings fight to win however they can, and it's absolutely brutal. Any Vinland Saga weebs out there? It should be terrifying to fight a Viking, right? Because it's not going to be a clean death if you're going to lose. So to add weight to the combat, the swings, the blocks, and all of that, they've added dismemberment and decapitation. They're actually confirmed for this game. That's certainly going to add that brutal nature to the combat that might be lacking in the previous games. But what I really like is the fact that shields are actually going to be used in an offensive way this time, letting him use them to, yes, block, but also attack and bash enemies in between normal weapon swings. We're actually going to see a lot of different weapon types in Valhalla, but I think most notable is the fact that we can now dual wield. We see Eivor do this in the cinematic and also the not gameplay trailer. And since we can dual wield, that's right, we can dual wield shields. I think that's great, honestly, for more varied weapon combinations and types of attacks. It's only a good thing. We also have ranged options like bows and thrown weapons, so we should be able to take enemies down from range regularly, hopefully fluidly during combat. Since this is also, I know, I forget too, an Assassin's Creed game, we actually do have stealth as a big part of the gameplay, and they will be using social stealth again, hiding in crowds, bushes, hay, dark areas, that usual stuff, but they did specifically state that it'll have a unique twist this time around. Whatever that is, I'm looking forward to finding out. Anyway, we'll be able to assassinate foes from stealth, and it'll no doubt be a big role in the game. We'll see Eivor forgo that hidden aspect of the hidden blade, for example, because he does actually have one, since he's actually got it just out on his left arm during the cinematic. You'll get this early on in the game after you meet the assassins somehow. Now, you'll have seen our next topic all over the trailers by now. We're of course talking about longships. Crucial to raiding, traveling, and that entire Viking vibe, the longships are what allowed Vikings to move around various terrains and land effectively during this time. They're iconic ships that should be integral to this game, and thankfully they do seem very important. For your longship, you'll have a specific Viking crew, the characters that you meet along your journey, who you recruit based on their skills and uses for your own preferences. They can be customized too, how I wonder, but you can upgrade them for purposes you need or want mechanically. On top of being part of your raiding crew, they'll live in the world and take residence in your settlement, so you see them about anyway. Apparently, via the online system they're going with, your friends will be able to meet your specific crew and modded characters, and then take them on raids themselves, which gives you rewards, and vice versa, you can do the same with their crew. On top of that, we'll be able to customize the ships too, personal to whatever you want. We'll be using these ships to raid, which are actually known as assaults in this game. Assaults are sort of big siege battles upon fortresses and the land to plunder and conquer. This is what we're watching in the cinematic, an assault. So we'll expect varied defenses and strategies to try hold their lands, with the devs specifically stating that they want to surprise players who are many hours into the game with new obstacles to overcome during these raids. It seems like they're planning to have these be quite varied and an ongoing difficult challenge throughout the entire game. During these assaults, we will come across main big boy enemy types known as ringleaders. The big boss fella we saw in the cinematic is a good example. They can rally troops and cause a huge problem in your raid. You'll have to overcome the ringleaders of each defense by targeting their weak points and planning for this fight beforehand. We'll have to take them very seriously because they're essentially bosses. Eivor, for example, barely wins against this ringleader using his not-so-hidden blade. So, since this is the third title in this new style for the series, let's talk about the RPG elements. After the radical change in core gameplay after both Odyssey and Origins, we can expect similar in Valhalla. However, I'm just going to be honest with you guys now. I am glad they made this change and went in this new direction with the Assassin's Creed series. Things were getting stale. But I do think this RPG system that they've been working with lately has massive issues. Remember the crazy strong chickens or beasts that would just attack you in the middle of towns, the gearing system balance issues, and many times the clunky combat. To say the least, it needs refinement, even if it is a cool new and good new step. In Valhalla, they've decided to make gear unique and upgradable, to stick to the theme and setting while allowing them to balance it better this time. So this actually means that if you love the style of a certain gear, you don't have to drop it for another piece that is better, but visually sucks or ruins your whole vibe. You can keep your gear and keep upgrading it all the way until the end of the game. Plus, you'll also be able to further customize that gear deeper in the game too, which is cool. With that, they've also revamped the skill system. They're calling it a skill graph, which sounds kind of weird to me personally. So yeah, as we progress through the game, just like a skill tree, we'll unlock more abilities and refine those, eventually reaching a unique set of skills based on our choices. This skill graph does sound just like a skill tree to me. I gotta know why they're calling it a graph. You'll be able to focus on, say, stealth, combat, ranged abilities, that kind of thing, whatever you want to do, and then there'll be a type of playstyle that you focus on, or choose to go more hybrid, I guess. They claim because of this graph system rather than a tree, it'll allow the abilities to specifically synergize better with each other rather than just the default 3 tiers that you choose between like normal. I'm intrigued at very least. I want to see what they mean by this. With the older systems, they've removed levels too. No more ridiculous chicken fights. We'll have base power from your progression with skills and the quality of the gear that you've got equipped. That will affect gameplay, but generally, it'll be more about your ability to use your character and overcome fights with skill rather than being limited by stats on a weapon, which was obviously a massive complaint from me for the previous 2 games. I'm very happy to hear that. Because they've panned the grindy leveling system, that means we were going to have more agency again in the world itself, the ability to explore in any direction without facing impossible to defeat enemies, immersion breaking chicken fights. It lets you choose which type of content you want to focus on, since it's not behind a level wall anymore. Speaking of animals though, we do know that Eivor will have that same raven from the cinematic to help him discover things in the world, but also he has the ability to use a wolf during combat at times, and in certain concept art we also see him fighting alongside a white bear. I think we should be able to expect regular animal companions in the gameplay because of that, which should be neat. Okay, that's everything I know about Valhalla so far from the trailers and interviews. What do you think? Are you excited for this next Assassin's Creed game? Does it look different enough? As I've mentioned, I am a big fan of the new direction in core gameplay, and I think it's fair to say that the series was facing a very repetitive formula that drove many, including me, away. With the new direction of a more RPG style game, I think it's a cool new direction, but it seriously needed refinement, which is what I think we're gonna see in Valhalla. I'm hopeful, I'm interested, let's see what they show us next. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you next time.